After being gifted with legendary powers, 4 young pandas are given the mission of imprisoning the Dragon Master and enlist Po's help to develop their new abilities. Today we're going to recap the first season of the Kung Fu Panda series, The Paws of Destiny, from 2018. During the annual Peach Blossom Festival, 4 young pandas use a wooden cart to speed down the mountains as Po, the dragon warrior, is about to arrive in the village. On the way, the group accidentally knocks over a statue and the giant Peach starts rolling towards the village. Luckily, no one was injured during the accident, but the great symbol of the village ended up falling off the cliff. While all the residents are suffering from collective hysteria, Po appears and helps the pandas to calm down. That night, Nu Hai and her friends hide in their room, as they are ashamed of all the tragedy they have caused. Worried, Grandma Panda shows up to say goodnight and says that the residents will soon forget what happened. In an attempt to apologize to the villagers, the quartet decides to take the statue back to the village and, while trying to roll it to the top of the cliff, they end up discovering the existence of the Temple of the 4 Constellations. Suddenly, the statue's eyes light up and the spirits of the 4 warriors invade the pandas' bodies. Terrified, the youngsters run out of the temple and the passage closes. When they get home, they notice that their paws are glowing and have no idea that Jindiao has sent his subjects to capture them. In the morning, the youngsters go after Po and try to convince him to accept them as apprentices, as they believe they have been chosen by the universe to inherit the powers of 4 great kung fu masters. At first, Po denies the request, but after a brief meeting with Master Ogway on the spiritual plane, he learns that he has been chosen for this mission and decides to train the children. That night, the youngsters are captured by Jade Tusk because she needs to find out how to open the passage that leads to the temple. However, the pandas don't know how to get in and are about to be eliminated when Po appears. He immediately attacks Jade Tusk and her gang, using his kung fu skills to protect the children. However, as he is outnumbered, Po ends up being defeated and taken prisoner. Furious to see their master in danger, Nu Hai and her friends use their new powers to attack their enemies and put Jade Tusk and her gang on the run. That night, the Dragon Warrior gets his first students and undertakes to teach them everything he knows. The next morning, Po wakes up the young pandas for their first day of school and decides to use the old training hall, which is on top of a mountain. During their first lesson, the 4 young people discover the true nature of the Shi they have been given and discover that they will have to work hard to develop them. Since none of them know how to control their Shi, the Dragon Warrior decides to help them develop their physical skills first and tries to remain optimistic even in the face of their poor performance. That night, Jindiao pays a visit to Master Chan and steals his Shi to become even more powerful. When a messenger arrives in the village with a message for Po, Nu Hai comes forward and takes the scroll to deliver the message to her master. But instead of doing that, she convinces her friends to go to Wu Ran to fight the bandits who have taken over the village. When they get there, they can't activate their Shi and have to flee down an alley. However, Bao and Jing end up being captured and Fantong faints with fear. Determined to save her friends, Nu Hai manages to access the powers of the Blue Dragon and gets rid of the enemy with a single blow. Just then, Po appears and attacks the other bandits who have invaded the village. After defeating them, the panda congratulates Nu Hai on having learned to activate her Shi and says that he will help the other youngsters to do the same. That night, during a dream, Po is attacked by a red dragon and, just as he was about to be devoured by the creature, another dragon appears to defend him. The animal attacks the predator as it flies through the sky and the panda is thrown back to earth. Suddenly, Po hears Master Ogway's voice and the turtle advises him to pay a visit to the Temple of the 4 Constellations. At that moment, the Dragon Warrior is devoured and wakes up frightened. That same day, he asks his pupils to help him find the entrance to the temple and discovers that the young pandas are the key to opening it. Upon entering, the group comes across a box on a pedestal and inside, Po finds a scroll. However, before the pandas have a chance to see what is written there, Jade Tusk appears and manages to steal it. Po immediately goes after her, but gives up the scroll to help his pupils, who are about to be crushed by a statue. Even though Po runs to save them, he can't get there in time, but Bao manages to create a shield to protect his friends. Minutes later, the group leaves the temple and Fan Tong reveals that he managed to change the scroll without Jade Tusk noticing. However, when they open it, they discover that the paper is blank, so the group decides to return to the village and Po is overjoyed when he receives a visit from his father. The truth is that Mr. Ping and Li, Po's biological father, don't get along. So the panda decides to stay away from them so as not to be forced to choose just one side. Meanwhile, Jindiao discovers that the scroll has been switched and bewitches a 4-armed demon bull to steal the real scroll. That same day, Yao Guai appears in the panda's village and attacks the youngsters in an attempt to force them to hand over the scroll. When his sister is captured, Fantong, who is known for being the most fearful of the group, manages to summon the sword of the Red Phoenix and rips off the demon's fist. Then the little guy uses his sword to cut his enemy's body in half and, once again, Jindao's plans fail. The man's real reason for wanting that scroll is that he wants to get his old body back. After an insane battle against the masters of the 4 constellations, Jindao's soul was expelled from his dragon body and wandered around until it invaded the body of an old bird. Since then, he has needed to steal the Shi of great masters to strengthen himself, and now he intends to suck Po's life force to be able to complete the last part of his mission. After Yaoguai's attack, the 4 young pandas came up with the idea of uniting their powers to make the message described in the scroll visible, but Jing still has trouble manifesting his Shi. That afternoon, Jindiao and his subjects pay a visit to the pandas' village without anyone knowing his real identity, and he claims that he has gone there to pay homage to the dragon warrior. Excited by the visit, Po decides to take the vulture to see the training hall, and Jindiao suggests an exhibition fight for his students against the panda's pupils. After dinner, Po starts to feel ill and Jindiao offers to look after him while Mr. Ping and Li continue the exhibition fight. Just then, Jade Tusk and the other gazelles burst into the training hall looking for the scroll, but they can't find it. While Po has to fight Jindiao to stop him from stealing his Shi, the young pandas are beaten up by their opponents. During the battle against the dragon, Po realizes that he is inside his own mind and manages to take control of the battle. After defeating him, the dragon warrior wakes up believing it was all a dream and finds Jindiao unconscious. In the meantime, Jade Tusk and her gang have invaded the village in search of the scroll, and all the kung fu fighters unite to try and defeat them. Seeing her friends getting hurt in battle, Jing manages to activate her Shi and uses her powers to stop the battle. She then heals Jindiao, as Po was unable to revive him. That night, when asked about the scroll, Jade Tusk claims to have destroyed it, but the truth is that the real scroll was very well hidden. Reading it together with her friends, Jing discovers that the Dragon Master can't be trusted, and the quartet begins to suspect Po, as he is known as the Dragon Warrior. The next morning, while trying to find out why he was ill, Po discovers, with the help of his parents, that someone has tried to poison him. In order to discover the identity of the real culprit, Po decides to pay a visit to the Tualuo market while Mr. Ping and Li investigate the villagers. Knowing that this will be a dangerous journey, Po informs his pupils that they won't be able to accompany him, but the youngsters decide to ignore this warning and follow their master through the forest. That night, while taking a rest break, Jing dreams that his friends are being attacked by Po and starts screaming. Their cries allow the panda to discover that he is being followed, but the little ones manage to convince their master to allow them to accompany him. When they arrive in Tualuo, the group meets Mei Mei, and Po asks for her help to find Laoshu. When he finally gets the chance to talk to the elephant, Po asks who the last person was to whom she sold the black Shi herb, but the merchant refuses to give any information about her customers. Laoshu then lures the panda into a trap and orders her men to capture it. Meanwhile, the young pupils search the room for information and accidentally start a fire. When she realizes that her tent has been destroyed, Laoshu attacks the children, at which point Po appears to protect them. After defeating the elephant, the dragon warrior forces her to tell him how to find the person who poisoned him and, after obtaining the necessary information, continues on his journey. That night, the group finds Jade Tusk and manages to capture her. Jing then forces her to drink the truth serum she found in Laoshu's tent, and Po discovers that the gazelle is working for the Dragon Master. However, just as she was about to reveal Jindao's identity, the monster controls Jing's mind and uses her powers to free Jade Tusk. Furious, her friends begin to question her, but Jing explains that she has lost control of her powers. When she used her Shi to heal Jindiao, the young woman bonded to him, and now the villain is able to control her mind without her realizing it. Looking at her reflection in the water, Jing ends up being captured by Jindiao, who convinces her to go to the Plum Blossom Temple. Meanwhile, Po and the other pandas stop in a village to feed themselves, and, when he sees the Dragon Warrior, Rooster challenges him to a battle. With the help of the other members of his gang, the Rooster plays dirty and manages to give those pandas quite a beating. However, so that his plans aren't delayed, Jindiao decides to intervene and helps Jing eliminate the enemies. The young panda and her team then continue their journey to the temple. At dusk, while walking through the forest, the group is attacked again and Po is surrounded by rabid bulls. Just then, Jindao's pupils show up and help the panda get rid of all those bandits. When she finally makes it to the Plum Blossom Temple, Jing reveals that she isn't feeling well, and Jindiao asks his students to accompany him to the infirmary. That night, while resting in their dormitory, the young pandas spot a shadow and decide to follow it. When she comes across Jade Tusk, Nu Hai decides to go after her and, meanwhile, Po, who was after a snack, finds the Dragon Master's secret room. After discovering the truth, Po goes after the children and realizes that the trio has disappeared. Luckily, he manages to find Jing in the infirmary and they both leave to look for the rest of the group. On the way, Po spots Jindiao trying to steal Rooster's Shi and decides to save him. After freeing the rooster, the dragon warrior discovers that Jing is possessed and is attacked by her. Instead of fighting, the panda tries to help the young girl resist the Dragon Master's influence, but ends up having his Shi stolen. After losing all his life force, Po is thrown out of the temple and his students can do nothing to save him. Now that their master has been defeated, the young pandas must flee to avoid having their Shi stolen and leave Jing behind, as she is still under Jindao's control. While fleeing through the forest, Nu Hai and her friends realize that the Dragon Master is on his way to the pandas' village, so the trio decide to go there to protect the villagers. When they arrive in the village, the youngsters manage to convince the villagers that Jindiao is evil and ask for everyone's help to defeat him. Hours later, the villain arrives in the village with his henchmen and takes all the pandas prisoner to convince the 4 youngsters to hand over their Shi. When he wakes up, Po comes across Bunny Dharma, who has found him passed out in the snow and taken him to his burrow. Knowing that the dragon warrior has lost his Shi, the rabbit decides to help him recover his energy. To do this, Po has to go back to training his kung fu and gets beaten up by Bunny Dharma, who, despite his diminutive size, is a great fighter. After surrendering to save the pandas, the 4 youngsters begin to think of a plan to stop Jindiao and combine their powers to expel the Dragon Master from Jing's mind. To get out of the room, the youngsters convince the guard to open the door and attack him to escape. The 4 friends then meet Grandma Panda and Mr. Ping and ask for their help to get out of the village, as they need to find Po. In an attempt to avoid being seen by Jindao's guards, the youngsters decide to go through the underground tunnel that has been built beneath the village, but Fan Tong ends up being captured by a giant spider. While trying to save him, the other members of the team also get trapped in the arachnid's webs, but Fan Tong manages to free them. Immediately, the 4 friends team up to defeat Jiju and combine their powers to attack her. When it realizes that these pandas have the Shi of the 4 constellations, the spider bows down to them and calls them masters. With Jiju's help, the group manages to reach the Temple of the 4 Constellations and encounters Jindiao and his gang. During the duel between the spider and the Dragon Master's henchmen, the youngsters try to escape and run off to find Po. Meanwhile, the Dragon Warrior continues his training to recover his Shi and discovers that Bunny Dharma was responsible for the elimination of the former masters of the 4 constellations. After the Dragon Master had reached the peak of his power, Master Ogway asked the rabbit to create a spirit urn to imprison him. Bunny Dharma's mission was to deliver the urn to the 4 constellations, so that they could trap Jindao's evil soul. However, the rabbit got very tired after making the urn and ended up sleeping. Thanks to this, the Master Dragon managed to defeat his opponents. Upon discovering the truth, Po decides to go and meet Jindiao, as he believes that this time he will be able to imprison his spirit. When they realize that they are being followed by the Dragon Master and his henchmen, the young pandas decide to create a trap to capture them. After invading Jindao's mind, the group forces him to hit a frozen lake and everyone ends up falling into the water. However, the Dragon Master and his guards soon manage to break free and the 4 friends end up surrounded. In an attempt to make amends for his past mistake, Bunny Dharma decides to accompany Po on this journey and helps him find his pupils. After a brutal battle against Jindiao and his gang, Jing and her friends end up caught in an avalanche, but Bao uses his powers to protect them. Shortly afterwards, Po manages to find his students and asks the little ones to help him trap Jindao's soul in the spirit urn. When they are all reunited, Bunny Dharma reveals that he doesn't know how to use the urn. Therefore, the young pandas will need to go to the spiritual plane and ask to find the 4 constellations, because only they know how to imprison the Dragon Master in that artifact. While his students are challenged to a game of Kuju to prove that they are worthy of this information, Po is sent to meet Yaoguai and discovers that the demon harbors a strong desire for revenge on Jindiao. After countless failures, Nu Hai and her friends decide to use their powers to win that game and manage to prove that they are a match for their opponents. Even so, the panda team loses the contest, so the blue dragon decides to test them with a riddle. By piecing together the information given by the warrior, Jing and her friends discover that the spring Jindiao is looking for is hidden inside the peach statue. At this point, the 4 constellations reveal that in order to imprison the Dragon Master, the group will need to use the energy of the spring. After giving the youngsters all the information they need to defeat Jindiao, the 4 spirits disappear and the pandas return to their bodies. They then wake Po up and interrupt the conversation he was having with Yaoguai so that their master can help them activate the spring. On leaving their hideout, the pandas come across Jindiao once again and have to protect the urn. However, the group is unable to stop him from breaking the artifact and everyone is taken prisoner. Meanwhile, in the pandas' village, Jiju announces that a great battle is coming and teaches the bears how to use their shi to defeat their enemies. As all of Po's shi has been drained, Jindiao decides to get rid of him, but just as the panda was about to be hit, Bunny-Dharma uses his body as a shield and sacrifices himself to save him. To prevent the young pandas from having their power stolen, Po decides to reveal the location of the spring and claims that only his students are capable of opening the cave. On the way to the temple, the dragon warrior reveals to his students that the urn that Jindiao broke was a fake, because Bunny-Dharma sensed the presence of the enemy approaching and managed to make the exchange. While the pandas are training how to use their shi, Mr. Ping decides to go out to look for his son and discovers that Po and the children have become prisoners of Jindiao. Immediately, the goose returns to the village and asks Li to help him rescue his son. For the first time, both decide to work as a team and help the pandas reach the Temple of the Four Constellations. Under Jindao's orders, the youngsters use their power to activate the spring and, in doing so, an explosion of shi occurs, granting power to all the other pandas in the village. Then, when the Dragon Master was about to regain all his power, Nu Hai and her friends captured the Master and Po opened the spirit urn to imprison him. The Dragon Warrior and his friends are already celebrating their victory when they hear Jindao's evil voice and discover that he has sent his host's body to the urn in his place. At that moment, his spirit frees itself and returns to its true form, turning the young pandas' bodies into stone. Once again, the four constellations have failed to defeat the Dragon Master and now Po will need the help of the other pandas in the village to complete this mission. While trying to escape, Jindiao is captured by Jiju and Li uses his shi to close the exit. However, the dragon attacks them with its flames and manages to escape. Meanwhile, Nu Hai and her friends are trapped on the spiritual plane and ask for the help of their predecessors to return. However, the blue dragon reveals that there is no way out and only in 1,000 years' time will they have another chance to defeat Jindiao. When he realizes that the panda's village is in danger, Po and his allies start a war against the Dragon Master and his henchmen. Now that he has lost his shi, the Dragon Warrior is no longer as powerful as before, so he enlists Jiju's help to reach the enemy. After climbing on Jindao's back, Po uses his powers to send him to the spirit realm, because he knows that this is the only way to protect the village. When he gets there, the panda meets Yaoguai again and reveals that he has brought him a present. However, the bull doesn't recognize Jindiao, since when he found him he was in the body of a bird. Furious at being abandoned, Yaoguai chases Po and the Dragon Master takes the opportunity to escape. While trying to escape the demon's fury, the Dragon Warrior ends up meeting his pupils and the youngsters help him send the bull back to his prison. When they discover that Jindiao is wandering the spirit plane looking for a way out, Nu Hai and her friends decide to help Po find him. With all the power he possesses, it's possible that the Dragon Master will find a way out of that realm. To prevent this from happening, the panda takes on the physical appearance of the Dragon Warrior and goes after the enemy. At this point, his students feel frustrated because they no longer have any power. So the four constellations decide to give all their shi to those young people so that they have a second chance to win that battle. Immediately, the quartet go after Jindiao and help Po attack him. However, the Dragon Master manages to open a portal to return to the physical world and the pandas go after him. Seeing her friends being attacked by the dragon, Mei Mei captures Jade Tusk and decides to take her prisoner. But instead of saving his faithful squire, Jindiao attacks her, showing that he doesn't care about her at all. In an attempt to convince the pandas to hand over the four youngsters, the dragon suggests a deal and promises the village peace and wealth in exchange for the little ones. However, instead of handing them over, Li and the others decide to fight back and enlist Jiju's help to throw large rocks at the enemy. While Jindiao is trapped, Nu Hai and her friends unite their powers to hold him while Po tries to get the spirit urn. During the battle, one of the gang's gazelles manages to steal the artifact and throws it over the cliff. Desperate, Po rushes to try and save the object, but to his surprise, Jade Tusk decides to help him because she realizes that Jindiao needs to be stopped. With her help, Po and the other pandas manage to trap the dragon's spirit and its entire body turns to ash. When asked why she had betrayed her master, Jade Tusk reveals that she had dedicated her life to serving him and that day she realized that she had never mattered to him. After being healed by Jing, the warrior and her clan decide to leave and the pandas take the urn to the Temple of the Four Constellations, where Jindiao will live for eternity. After this legendary victory, the pandas have a big feast to celebrate and, the very next day, the young pandas resumed their kung fu training. After their heroic deeds became known, Nu Hai and her friends became famous throughout China. With the help of the Dragon Warrior, they will have to carry out countless missions, as many people have sent letters asking for their help. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.